Hello, I'm Kendall Swanson. I'm a professor in the Department of Animal Sciences at NDSU. Thanks for the opportunity today to talk to you about the North Dakota Beef and Sheep Report. I have helped coordinate this report for several years, and it's great to be able to talk about this report with you. This is just the front cover here, the picture of the 2020 version, which came out in September. So, first of all, the goal of the report is to provide producers and stakeholders with one document that contains all the beef and sheep related research for North Dakota. And this is a quite wide variety of things, including topics like nutrition, reproduction, genetics, grazing, meat science, etc. So maybe a little bit about the history of the report to start here. For many years across the state, there's been various reports that have been published in beef and sheep from the beef and sheep groups, both here at the main campus and at our research extension centers. In 2014, Vern Anderson and I talked, and we decided to try to consolidate this all into one report. And at that time, it was all of the beef research into one report. So we started doing that in 2014. And in 2018, the report was expanded to include sheep research. Chris Schauer at Hettinger had coordinated that for several years, and we decided to consolidate that because there'd be some very common interests across both beef and sheep production systems. So you might be asking, how can I find this report? Probably the easiest way is just to search in Google or whatever search engine you use and search for the North Dakota Beef and Sheep Report. And then you'll get a list of several of the beef and sheep reports. If you scroll down, there's probably one that starts with research reports. It's at a couple different places on the web, but that one's a nice place to look. And this is what, if you got to that report, this shows all of the research reports for the last 15 or 20 years. So you can see in the last, since 2014, we called it the North Dakota Beef Report, and then Beef and Sheep Report in 2018. And before that are the reports that were conducted here at NDSU in the Animal Science Department, and we called it the Beef, Cattle, and Range Research Report at that time. So I helped coordinate a few of those, and prior to that, Greg Lardy had done that for several years. So this is a nice site because you can go back through the years and see all of the reports, so you can look at other past research as well. So if we clicked on the 2020 report, this is the web page where that would be shown. So you can either scroll through and look at specific reports here, or up on that right top corner there, you could download the whole report into a PDF format if you wanted to. Then you could save that on your computer, or if you wanted to print it out, you could do that as well and read it wherever. So okay, for the 2020 report, this is, I just cut this from the table of contents from the PDF version. So these are all the reports in this year's report. As you can see, we have it broken up into different sections. So we have sections grazing and forages, growing and finishing, maternal nutrition, or mostly pregnant cow nutrition. Then we also have male fertility, meat science, and this year we also included some extension updates, which was a nice addition to the report. So now what I want to do is just kind of highlight 3 or 4 of these research reports so you kind of get an idea of the different types of research that are in one of these beef and sheep reports. So this first study, Miranda Meehan and Thomas Scherer did on water quality in both groundwater and surface water sites across North Dakota. So they collected samples from all across North Dakota and looked at water quality. And they did this by measuring total dissolved solids. So in groundwater, there wasn't very much concern and not very much variation, but in surface water, there was a lot more variation in the amount of total dissolved solids in the water. And they did a nice job in the report of stating what the concerns might be at those different levels. And also did a nice job of encouraging people to get their water tested, especially for surface water sites if they're using those. So the next report was by Jana Block and others at NDSU and also from South Dakota State University. She collaborated with researchers there as well. And they've been doing research on different feeding strategies of pregnant cows. And in this case, they compared concentrate or forage-based diets for pregnant cows. And then what they did is they followed those offspring basically through the feedlot in the finishing period to determine if feeding them differently, those cows differently during pregnancy would influence the calf performance. And we're beginning to make a lot more progress on understanding these potential kind of programming effects that can influence the next generation. And in this case, they found that feeding them to meet their requirements, either a concentrate or forage-based diet, didn't really influence their performance or their carcass traits. So we need to keep doing research to better understand kind of the key nutrients and key characteristics of diets to try to, I guess, enhance performance of our calves for either beef production or for heifer development. Here's another experiment by Ana Clara Menezes, and she's a postdoc in our department in Fargo, and working with Carl Dolan and several others in the department. And they've been doing kind of similar work, but with vitamin and mineral supplementation during pregnancy. And in this case, it was in heifers. And they've been looking at kind of nutrient supply to that fetus during pregnancy and how that might influence fetal development and also long-term effects on calf growth. And in this case, they looked at nutrient supply to the fetus at day 83 of pregnancy, and here they showed that, and they've shown that other nutrients as well differ in that blood that's going to the fetus and also in the allantoic fluid, which is the fluid that bathes the fetus within the amniotic sac and in the placenta. So in this case, they looked at glutamate, which is an important amino acid that has many biological effects on cellular metabolism and growth and tissue function in animals. And they saw that vitamin and mineral supplement influenced the supply of this of glutamate and also to in the allantoic fluid, so that could influence development of that fetus. So that's exciting work, trying to better understand why are we seeing differences sometimes in fetal development, and what are the most important nutrients that we could try to then supply to overcome these potential concerns. So the last one I want to talk about is lamb project that Travis Hoffman and his student conducted, and they looked at sensory attributes of male lambs, either fed as rams or as wethers, on what a taste panel would consider for those lamb flavor and toughness, lamb flavor intensity, etc. So in their case here, they showed there were differences between ram and wethers, and it was significant, but the differences were actually very small. And in some cases, like lamb flavor intensity, some people prefer that and some people don't, so there may be beneficial or non-beneficial attributes of each. But in the end, the differences between the two are very, very small, which could potentially allow producers to consider feeding ram lambs, which would be more efficient during their growth. So just quickly again, we included extension updates this year, which I think is a nice addition. These are 4 of them that we selected to include from our extension personnel. So things like integrating crop and livestock systems, emergency response, grazing plans, and nutrient management type plans. So you get an idea of the type of extension programming out there, and also how, I guess, nicely it interacts and influences our research program. So on the right here, this is just the back cover of this year's report. So it just shows some pictures of some of our research in action. On the left, I just put, we're a bit lean and mean right now. We're down on numbers of personnel and things, but we're doing everything we can to conduct research that benefits the producers and the people in North Dakota. And finally, I just want to thank all those that help with the report. Ellen and Deb from Ag Communications, they're great with helping with all the formatting. Also, everybody that does work related to research and puts these reports in. The funding sources, we can't do the research without funding, so we're very grateful for that. And finally, all of you that are interested in beef and sheep research in North Dakota, and hopefully in the future you'll be looking for these reports as we roll them out on a yearly basis, usually in August or September of every year.